fact of the matter is, Merab and Corey both beat whoever wins this main event. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Fact of the Matter podcast. Today, I am joined with...
Hello, I'm Taco.
Taco's back. And yes, no Goose today.
Unfortunately.
At least, yeah. Unfortunately, you're back. No, you're great. But Goose will probably show up in the middle of this somewhere. Yeah, he's running a little bit late. But let's get right into this. We're talking about UFC 299, and we are going to be doing a full card breakdown. Taco, what do you think of the very first fight?
Yeah, super stacked fight. So we're starting at the bottom with Marina Munoz versus Joanne Woodward. I'm going to create this very short and quick. I thought this is a pretty hard fight to predict because I'm not really big on either fighters and their abilities. They've shown some pretty to lose quite often, but they have been losing to pretty good opponents. But I am going to stick with Marina Munoz here as the younger fighter who I think is a little bit less inconsistent with her abilities in fights. So I've got her through a decision.
Yeah. Going to my breakdown of this, looking at that fight, I didn't do too much research onto it. However, I see that Joanna Wood kind of struggles with grapplers, and Marina Munoz seems to have a lot of wins via grappling. So looking at that, it seems that Marina Munoz is going to win. Not much else to say about that. I don't know too much about it into the stylistic. I did all my research for other fights. However, going into the next fight, we have CJ Varag versus these names. Asu Almabazi. Gosh, these names are not. Oh my gosh, my Wi-Fi. 1 second. Break. My Wi-Fi is fucking up.
I noticed. Yeah, fuck.
Did it like stutter?
Oh, I didn't. The audio actually didn't stutter. I think it's just when I go to the video, I can see that you're kind of choppy. But like your audio isn't actually as choppy as you would think it is, to be honest.
Okay. All right.
Which is like at least a silver lining.
All right. Yeah. All right. Breaking. Going into the next fight, we've got ZJ Verga versus Asu Almabazi. Going into that fight, it's again more of a it's more of like a younger fighter coming up and fighting. Not really younger, but someone who's newer to the UFC versus a guy that's been here a bit more often than the other guy. Going into this fight, I do think Asu Almabazi is going to win this fight. He's favored to win, and I think he's going to win via grappling. As much as I hate that line, I think he's going to probably take him down and hold him there, and I don't think CJ Verga's grappling is necessarily there. What do you think, Taco?
Yeah, I'm with you on that pick. I've got Almabayev via sub in round 1. Mainly because CJ Vergara has, in my opinion, struggled against all the higher step-ups in his opponents, and also within some of his wins against less than stellar opponents, he's also looked pretty beatable. I think, I can't remember the fight off the top of my head, but it was like one of his wins. Just that he kind of got floored at the start against like quite a terrible opponent, I would say. But yeah, I'm definitely going with Asu Almabayev here, especially as he is a Kazakhstan person, enough said, who trains with Shavkat Rakhmonov. But the next fight, however, we've got is a massive prospect of the night. I would say probably the biggest prospect of the night is Rebellis to Spain versus Josh Parisian in the heavyweight division. Rebellis has got the hype, he's got the frame, and he's got the power. This man is literally not human. I think he is 6'7" with an 87 reach advantage. That's unbelievable, and he's fighting an absolute nobody of Josh Parisian, who, let's be real, should have already been cut from the UFC. I got rebellious with KO in round 1.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, you got a 4-0 prospect. He's huge. He looked very good in his last fights, and let's be real, Josh is not that good. As you said, he should have been cut. He should have been cut a while ago. But I will say, I wouldn't be shocked if he did something to win, as we haven't seen much of. Oh my gosh, the name Rebellious Despagian. It's got a. The names are not good, as he is so young, and we haven't seen much of him. However, I do think he's probably going to get that first round KO/DKO.
Mm-hmm.
Moving on to the next fight, we have, I believe it is, it's Michael Pereira versus Michael
Alexejchuk.
Oh my lord, that is a name. Michael Pereira coming up to middleweight. Very fun fighter to watch. He struggled to make weight in the past, so I'm happy he's going at the middleweight. He's a very fun fighter. Not very technical, but he always puts on a performance that everyone will remember. Whether that's doing a backflip onto your opponent, seems. But going into that fight, I don't know too much about the other guy, Mikal. I know he's got some wins by first round KO, but I also saw he lost to KO by first round submission, which Michael Pereira is not going to submit him, so he doesn't have to worry too much about the ground. So getting into that, I'm probably going to predict Michael Pereira by unanimous decision, honestly. I'm going to have to go by UD. What do you think, Dago?
I agree with what a lot of you said. However, I think that sub-loss to Calvarello has no shame in it, especially with the submission ability that Calvarello has. I also think I'm definitely not massive on the recent wins of Mikhail Alexejchuk, Cody Brundage, Sam Alvey, and then Chito on a 3-fight losing streak. But yeah, this fight is really close to predict, and I'm going with Mikhail Alexejchuk via decision, just because I think he's very tough as fuck. The majority of the losses are subs, and I agree, yeah, Pereira's not going to sub him, and that if Pereira comes out with his wild fighting style here, it's not going to really pay him well in this fight. I agree, and that I just think Mikhail's bodywork is going to definitely pay him dividends in this fight. And the next fight we have here is the Hulk versus Felipe Lin's Ian Cutelabra, light heavyweight division. This is actually one I also think is a pretty hard fight to pick, just because I really don't view both of these fighters really highly. Yeah, I'm not a fan at all. Literally, yeah. I think Cutelabra is 1-3 in his last 4. With Enzo Chikwu, Walker, and Spann, these guys are massive, and I think I have a lot of danger to them, I would say. And I don't really think Felipe Lins possesses the danger that those fighters have. And to be honest, I really just don't think Felipe Lins has shown really good ability in his career. And both of them haven't really been fighting good competition. So I'm going to go with Eon here by TKO in round 2 is my guess, but I think this is a very close fight.
Yeah, I definitely agree with your analysis. Both of them are, as I said, jobbers. If you don't know what that word is, it's a wrestling terminology, like a WWE terminology for a guy that is meant to be big, but he loses to people to make them seem bigger. Big Show, if you guys know him, he's a big jobber where he loses to everyone so that guy can fight for the championship and look big. But I do agree that I don't think Felipe Lins really has it in him anymore. When I look at his fights, he just looks really bad. I do think Ion is going to, or whatever his name is. Jeez, the names are very hard. Oh my lord. These names. I do think he's going to probably get it in the second round. He has been winning he's won more fights recently than Felipe, and he seems to be on more of a hot streak, I believe. Did he lose? Did he lose his last fight? I forget. I don't know much about this guy. But getting into the fight, I do agree. Probably second round KO/TKO. Moving on. Finally, some fights that are good. We have Pedro Munoz versus Kyler Phillips. I like this fight a bit because it is a newer guy coming up and facing an older guy. However, I do think Pedro is going to be a dangerous opponent for him, and I genuinely believe Pedro is probably going to. I'm going to predict second round TKO for Pedro Munoz. I think Kyler Phillips. I think he gets hit a little bit too much, and I think Pedro has too much power to not knock him out. What do you think, Taco?
Look, I think I agree. I'm not really massive on Kyler, and to be honest, if I look back and stand at this fight, I don't really see a finish happening here. I see Kyler is a very young fighter and he's very wild, but Munoz has shown to be a very, very tough fighter. He's always been able to trade effectively in the center and keep forward pressure, especially in latter rounds, and come back from adversity. And Munoz has got fantastic leg kicks, so I'm feeling that he might weather an early storm and then be able to win off a judge's decision here at the end. So I've got Munoz by a decision, yes, for sure. The next fight I know is a fight you're very keen on, Mateusz Gamrot versus RDA. This being in a prelim is unbelievable in my opinion.
It's insane.
Yes. For me here, though, RDA is on the latter end of his career, sadly. 39 years old, and he's facing a very notorious and one of the best grapplers in the division of lightweight, Gamrot, really. And he's coming back down to lightweight after his last outing, which was that loss at welterweight to Luque. And I just don't think his grappling matches up to Gamrot's. Like I've said to you before, that Moicano short notice fight doesn't really tell me a lot about his grappling, And Felder on short notice was able to take him down. I don't really rate his grappling as much. Gamrot's going to maybe play the safe, I think, but he's going to show his very entertaining kind of grappling style, even if that's not really what fans enjoy as much. And I think the odds really are speaking for themselves here as a minus 430 under favorite here for Gamrot. So I'm going with Gamrot by UD.
Yeah, going into this, Gamrot's obviously should be the favorite, and I'm definitely going to pick him to win this. Definitely by a unanimous decision. Gamrot's not necessarily a finisher, but looking at this fight, it goes to RDA's biggest weaknesses that I've seen is that RDA is allergic to wrestlers. He should not be facing wrestlers. He is not good off bottom. Off bottom, he kind of gets held down, and there's nothing he can do about it. Gamrot isn't necessarily the best at controlling people while on top, and RDA does have better striking, and he can maybe use his veteran knowledge to maybe get around that. However, I think Gamrot's just going to overwhelm him with pressure. RDA has a gas tank, so I do not see him gassing out at all. However, I think it's going to be similar to what I thought Murad versus Cejudo was going to be, where he was just going to throw so much that Triple C couldn't be able to do any offense himself. Yeah, and sure. I think that's what's probably going to happen to RDA. And I'm picking Mateusz Gamrot by a unanimous decision.
I love how you pronounce Gamrot's name so well.
Mateusz Gamrot?
Yeah.
I've had a lot of experience saying Guram Kutataladze, Samir Ismagulov, Chookagian. I can pronounce those names well because I had to say them a lot. Every other name I suck at. All right, getting into the next fight, we have Kathleen Chookagian versus versus Macy Barber. She has not fought in a while. Chookagian has not fought in a very long time. I believe her last
2022 against Manon Fiorot.
Yeah, that's the last fight I remember. We have more of an up and comer in Macy Barber, who last fight was, I believe, Emmett versus Poirier, where she beat Amanda Ribas. I think she's gonna come in here, and I think she's. I'm not gonna say. I think she's gonna do a decision this one. From what I remember from Chookagian, she's kind of durable. From what I remember, it's been a while since I watched any of her fights, but I think Macy Barber is gonna get the decision win. What do you think?
I agree. I haven't really done as much, I would say, research into how Caitlin Seminara or Chookagian is fighting ability and that kind of stuff. However, I think the context here, yeah, I agree with you, is a major thing. Yeah, not only did she lose to Manon Fiorot in 2022, and that's her last fight, but she also came overweight for that fight. And yeah, Macy Barber in the meantime has been displaying really great finishing ability, like that Ribas fight, and her loss to Alexa Grasso has aged pretty well, in my opinion. Yeah, I'd say so. Like, whilst Macy has been doing this and displaying this finishing ability, that Caitlin's been busy changing her name, not fighting, and sadly, I've been hearing that she's going through some personal struggles relating to pregnancy and that stuff. So I wish her the best with that, but sadly, it doesn't really reflect well for this fight. So I am going with Macy via TKO in round 2.
Oh, it's Chookagian, right? Yeah, I said that correctly, right? No, it's definitely.
So the next fight though is a pretty big fight to cap off the prelims. Here.
One second. Guess who just got here?
No way.
Guess who just got here?
My bad.
Goose.
Sorry, guys.
It's all good. Goose, we're on the Jalen Turner versus Curtis Blaydes fight. We can go first. Taco, why don't you go?
Jalen Turner?
We'll keep that in, yeah. Jalen Turner versus Curtis Blaydes. Let's go.
Oh my god.
Curtis Blaydes by domination.
Jaliton Almeida. I am too busy. All right.
Yeah.
So we don't throw you into the wolves, Goose. Taco, why don't you go first on this one?
For sure. I'm going to say, after picking him against Sergey, I'm kind of giving up on picking up Blaydes. But yeah, for me, it's kind of hard to know how Blaydes is going to always look now, especially with like the amount of damage that's like kind of surmounting in his career. I'd say he has got dangerous striking as well, but the striking for me, in my opinion, of his has looked good against less than stellar opponents. I just think Jaliton, although not doing much with his grappling, he pushes very hard for takedowns. He easily took down Lewis when Blaydes struggled. He's also incredibly suspicious, in my opinion. He is definitely on secret juice. And I'm definitely confident with him achieving this as Blaydes. Like I've seen in some of his fights in Volkov, he can get very prone to being tripped, especially if he's on the defense. Although not many people have done it, but Volkov did do that. And I do think it will be his Jaliton's toughest test, since Blaydes actually is like the first heavyweight he's fighting that actually knows what he's doing a bit on the ground. But I'm just saying Jaliton here is going to probably implement his very unfortunately not aggressive top grappling for 3 rounds, and I'm getting Jaliton for a UD here.
I definitely agree with your breakdown of that fight. That fight is an interesting fight because it's the first time Jaliton Almeida and not Jalen Turner is gonna be fighting a grappler, and it's gonna be interesting. I do think there is a big difference between Almeida and Blaydes wrestling. I think Almeida is a lot better of a wrestler than Blaydes. I think, as I've always said, as soon as Blaydes gets close to the top, he's always going to lose. He's always going to lose, and he is the definition of a jobber, where he always makes it to the top and then loses to a guy, and that guy gets the title fight. He is the definition of a jobber. I think Jaliton Almeida is probably going to get a unanimous decision over Curtis Blaydes. Goose, since you're back, well, I'll just pass the mic to you.
Sure, sure. So I'll give a couple of the picks I missed real quick. So basically, at least in the prelims, I am going with Pedro Munoz, Mateusz Gamrot, and Macy Barber. But that aside, Curtis Blaydes, Jaliton Almeida. I'll say it right away. I think Curtis Blaydes is gonna win. I'm not super confident. I'm not super high on this fight either. I think it might be boring, just an average heavyweight fight, you know. But I think, last performance by Almeida was just so disappointed. The fact that he couldn't do anything when, was it Lewis or Rosenstrike? I don't even. I'm having a brain fart, but regardless, he couldn't do anything while he was in the most dominant positions of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, right? So that doesn't give me a lot of confidence to pick him against Curtis Blaydes. And I think whether they engage in grappling or not, I think Curtis Blaydes will have a striking advantage, and I think he'll get a knockout, probably ground and pound TKO on Jaliton Almeida. I'll say probably the second or third round. That's my pick.
Interesting. Yeah, his last fight was Derek Lewis, Almeida.
Yeah, I don't know. I started saying the memes about how they look the same, and you know.
Yeah. Getting into the main card, we have Petr Yan versus Yadong. And getting into this fight, I think it's pretty clear to me that Petr Yan is finally going to get a win for the first time since 2021, I want to say, if I'm remembering that correctly. But getting into the technical aspects, I think striking wise, I think Petr Yan is going to have to get going a lot quicker than he normally does to win. If he doesn't get going, I think Yadong is going to beat him by a unanimous decision. I do not see Petr Yan getting finished. And I don't see Petr Yan necessarily finishing Yadong, so I'm going to guess by unanimous decision. So when I'm looking at this fight, I think if Petr Yan gets in the groove by the second round, I think he's going to win this fight. But if he doesn't, I'm probably going to have to say Yadong, but I'm going to have to, for my official pick, I'm going to pick Petr Yan by unanimous decision.
Yeah, no, I think, well, I have the same pick. Surprise, surprise. Listen, I do know the talking point of Petr Yan starts too slow. It's a 3-round fight, and Yadong has a lot of power. I understand all of these points, but I just don't think that's enough. First of all, Petr Yan starting slow, it's really not that big of a problem when he stays safe, 1, and 2, he's still landing like the better shots usually. And when I look at Yadong, I just think he is just another mid-fighter he is very talented, but as far as how he puts everything together, I think he's just another team alpha male fighter, and that's not a compliment. I think he would be better with different coaching. I think he's a bit one-dimensional compared to Petr Yan, and Petr Yan will just show how much wider his arsenal is and how much better his fight IQ is. I think Yadong will miss. I think he will swing big, and I think Petr Yan will be able to take, even if he hasn't changed much in his last, with his last time off and training camp, I think Petr Yan will win unanimous decision as well, because I don't think he'll finish Yadong. So, what about you, Taco?
Interesting. Well, I mean, I agree with what you're saying, actually. I think the 3-rounder sometimes gets a little bit over-exaggerated, especially with, Yan. In the last 3-rounder he had, he really didn't have a slow start. So I kind of think that kind of point is starting to look a little bit not strong, in my opinion. But Yadong has been super impressive, in my opinion. He's showed really slick striking that is prioritizing speed and power. And even in his lackluster performance against Gutierrez, I think he showed that he can take it down to the ground if he wants. He's got knowledge in that kind of arena as well. But I do think it will be a struggle to implement that style against Yan. Yan has always showed that he's got really good takedown defense. Even the Merab fight, he took an onslaught of takedowns and managed to stop the hefty majority of it. And he's also just Yan himself. He's got really fantastic tight guard boxing. And for me, it's really just the coin toss. Does he still have it in him? But I'm expecting an actually really super close fight here, like the classic kind of bantamweight high-ranking fighter. You see both dudes that are well-rounded, prefer to strike, and it's just going to be a competitive, entertaining, long-distance affair. So struggling to pick who I think is going to take this, but I am leaning Yan ever so slightly. So I got Yan via split decision here. On to the next fight, though. Up the fucking Aussies. JDM via murder. No. Jokes aside, I think this fight is actually pretty hard to call. Burns suffers a lot from jabs. JDM's whole shtick is having really clean jabs. His boxing is just very crisp, in my opinion. The Holland fight showed that. And Burns, in my opinion, it's really dependent on him, I would say. He's coming off the Bilal loss with multiple injuries, and for me, safe to say, I think he knows that his title aspirations are kind of dead in the tracks now, and that his last wins were against a ready-to-retire Masvidal and a Magny. If Burns does implement the style that he had against Wonderboy, I do see that he could beat JDM there, but I just think JDM has got very respectable takedown defense. His takedown defense rate here is 82%. It's very high. And I'm not too big on his sub defense, but in his positions that he was put against Ameev, he showed that he actually does know what to do to get out of the sub attempts. So for me here, I think I am leaning towards JDM via a unanimous decision. What about you fellas?
I know I'm definitely gonna be the odd man out with this prediction. I believe. I think getting into the wrestling of this and the grappling, I think Burns is good enough to take JDM down. JDM's wrestling isn't necessarily the best. He has decent takedown defense, but when he gets to the ground, he's kind of a fish. He does do some things correctly. However, some things he kind of just doesn't. He's not as bad as necessarily someone like Gaethje, but he's definitely better. But he's definitely not good, is what I mean. Getting into the striking of this, I think JDM obviously has the advantage. However, I do think Burns' power will make him maybe a bit gun-shy. But getting into it, I do think Burns will use his power to kind of back up JDM a bit and get a takedown. And I think once he gets a takedown, I do believe he's going to sub him like he did Neil Magny. So I am predicting Gilbert Burns by round 1 submission. Goose, what are you thinking? I know. I told you, odd man out. Man out.
Round 1 submission. Interesting. All right. Well, I've actually been waffling in this fight. I have had trouble really deciding because, well, I agree with both of you guys' observations about each fighter. I think Burns, I have criticized Burns a lot historically because of his striking and how much he struggles with jabs, but he has kind of adjusted and started to fight a lot smarter than he used to. He is aging, but I think he looked back into the holes in his game and he actually addressed some of them. Now, the Bilal fight is a bit hard to judge because, well, he got injured. So I'm hoping he will show up better, although he wasn't very impressive against Masvidal either. So I really want to pick JDM via decision, but I have a feeling Burns is gonna be able to just hold him against the cage whenever he is in too much trouble, just like he did against Wonderboy, and I think he'll be able to out wrestle. I have a feeling, I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised at either one winning by decision, and I think it'll be a unanimous decision. and I'm picking. I'm going with Burns. All right, moving on to the next fight, though, is another very fun one and maybe hard to judge. We got MVP on his UFC debut against Kevin Holland. Fellas, what do you think?
Keen as hell, man. Keen as hell. Oh, like pick-wise though here? Both fighters for me are known to be flashy, and I'm under the impression, don't quote me on this, that both men are going to keep this one standing. Kind of like the whole Wonder Boy deal as well. And I frankly just don't know and see how Holland's going to deal with MVP's leg kicks, as he is well known to be does not check leg kicks, and he does not move out of the way of them. I guess here though that I'm also just not high and mighty on the MVP train here. This is like, as you said, a pretty difficult fight to call. But I'm leaning his way just because I don't trust Holland, especially after the Wonder Boy fight. I'm never letting that go that he didn't actually want to win that fight, it seems. And I also think see that MVP is going to land more effectively as the man with the better footwork as well in this kind of sense. I'm feeling it's actually not going to be as entertaining as a fight as it's being marketed, and I'm seeing MVP winning a decision through a lot of leg kicks and a lot of like footwork battles and shit.
Yeah, I see. Going into this, I actually disagree. I think Holland's probably gonna strike round one, but I do think he's probably gonna try and grapple a little bit. And I have another very hot prediction coming up. But getting into the striking aspect, I do think MVP has a bit of a edge on Kevin Holland. This is going to be a fun fight. I definitely agree with that. But when I look at how Kevin Holland has done in his past fights, obviously you look at the Wonder Boy fight and you saw he was striking, but if you look at his other picks or his other fights after that, you see that he has been grappling a lot more. And when I see that, I think he's probably going to be taking people down a lot more than he has in the past. And I am going off a very hot take, but I am going to predict. I'm going to predict Holland by second round sub.
Interesting.
I see you are copying my pick. No, actually, I kind of see it not happening the same way. But I was also considering round 2 submission. But ultimately, I am gonna pick Holland by second round TKO. And my reasoning is, well, I will say this: never underestimate Holland's ability to self-sabotage and just stop trying in fights. I can definitely see MVP landing some hard shots, Holland realizing, oh, he doesn't like that, struggling to find a target and just kind of, giving up, stop trying. And then MVP by decision. But, when I look at the Wonder Boy fight, well, first of all, I think Holland is a tougher guy probably than MVP. He has a pretty damn good chin and they both have a lot of power. But Holland did struggle against the dynamic striker in Wonder Boy, but he still tagged him. And if I remember correctly, he dropped him before he broke his hand around the second round. So with that being said, I think there are quite a few chances for Holland to actually land shots on some sloppy exchanges, especially as the fight goes on, and actually catch MVP. And I don't know if I can trust in MVP's chin to hold up, especially if Holland starts to actually grapple and just if he drops MVP, it might just be over. I don't know if he will be able to recover from Holland's power, because Holland hurts with everything he throws. So I'm ultimately gonna pick Holland by TKO. With that being said, time for another absolute banger
The
in
banger
Benoit
of the
Saint-Denis against Dustin Poirier. This one was another one difficult to pick for me.
Very hard. This is, in my opinion, the hardest on the card to predict.
Mhm.
Maybe same. And for me, it's gonna be either one of two outcomes. Either Benoit simply starts too aggressive, too fast for Dustin Poirier, takes him down. I definitely think he'll take him down no matter what. I think he gets at least 1 or 2 takedowns on Dustin Poirier. And he could potentially submit Poirier. Poirier has been in similar positions as Benoit Saint-Denis likes to be in, grappling, and he has been choked out by better grapplers, but he has been choked out. That being said, the other outcome, and the one I think is more likely, which is ultimately my pick, is Dustin Poirier by TKO, round 4. And I keep thinking about Benoit's debut, where he was completely gassed by like the 3rd round or so, if I remember correctly. And well, he was taking a lot of shots. I don't know why he didn't get stopped, because he was taking a lot of shots. And I think Dustin, considering that he's been training with Mateusz Gamrot, he's the perfect fighter to prepare for Benoit's aggression and grappling. And I think he has so much grit, he has power and more intelligent striking, more experience. I just think Dustin will be able to hurt Benoit in the 3rd and 4th rounds when he's already gassed, and Dustin will out-grit Benoit. So, Dustin by TKO, round 4.
Interesting. See, I originally began thinking that Dustin did have a solid chance, but sadly, boys, the more I thought about it, the less chances I think he has of winning. Coming off that head kick loss is bad enough, especially to fight a guy like Benoit Saint-Denis, where head kicks are his thing. But he's finally accepted a fight against a rising contender / prospect, and that just feels very weird to me, honestly. You know, that's not something that we see usually from Poirier. So to me, there's already context. It's not really painting a good picture of him behind the scenes, especially how he's already gotten the bag from the Conor fights. It's always something now I've kept in my mind with Dustin Poirier. But I'm seeing an easy path of victory for Benoit Saint-Denis that doesn't involve him straying from his usual style. I can see him using like his very intensity. I've called it here the intense French fury of his. Yeah, and so I can see him backing up Dustin on the cage, and then once he's on the cage, I can see him definitely getting a double leg and then onto Dustin, because I don't really rate Dustin's grappling ability, I would say. And if it's not through that, I think he also presents it like the enormous amount of danger through his head kick alone. And even if Dustin's on guard for it, then I'm pretty sure and certain that BSD's got a lot of fight IQ, and he's used a lot of his head kicks and body kicks to manipulate his opponent's footwork and that kind of stuff, especially for the Frivola fight. That's certain. I definitely know that there is a chance for Dustin to outgrit, shows crispy inside the boxing, but I'm really just not liking those chances. And also, my last note here is that Benoit Saint-Denis is not dumb like Chandler. So I've got Benoit Saint-Denis via rear naked choke in round 2.
Getting into this fight, when I was doing my research, is one thing is there's not a big enough serving size of Benoit Saint-Denis to get a really good picture of this, of who I think is going to win, in my opinion. I think there's not enough information. However, I am very worried about Dustin for a couple reasons. One, I've talked about this in the past with you guys about how I think Dustin Poirier doesn't necessarily have that dog in him more. I think he's getting to the point where he's starting to be like, all right, I can fight. I was worried about that in the Chandler fight, and then I was worried about in the Gaethje fight, and then we get to the start of this fight. There's talks about this fight not even happening because Dana White released it too early and the contract wasn't signed. And then in my mind, I'm guessing that means that he's probably was waiting to get paid more. So I assume DP is getting paid more than he usually is for fights to take this fight. which is kind of worrying about that hunger that he has. I think after that Oliveira fight, when he lost his second title shot, I was very worried that he lost that hunger. And getting into these, I am still worried about that. Getting into the technical side, BSD is a better kickboxer overall. However, Dustin Poirier is a better boxer. Getting into that, I think Dustin's boxing and his ability to counter kickboxing is probably good enough to handle BSD on the feet. However, getting into Poirier's chin, we are still worried. He did just get knocked out in his last fight, so that is always a worry. Getting to the grappling, this is where I'm very worried for Dustin Poirier. Dustin, his wrestling is trash. It is trash.
Completely.
Yeah.
That fight, he makes me cry when I watch him wrestle.
Oh my god.
I think
he's a black belt in BJJ, man.
No, stop that. The one thing I agree with Islam on: do not stop. But getting into the grappling, BSD is a much better grappler than Dustin Poirier, and I wouldn't be shocked if he can hold him down. Chandler was able to hold him down practically at will, and Chandler gave him a lot of opportunities for Dustin to get up. However, he did not. We look at Charles Oliveira. He did not get up from Charles Oliveira. We see Khabib. No one gets up from Khabib, so I'm not going to give an asterisk on that. It's also hard with Oliveira on top of you. However, I have been very worried about Dustin Poirier, and my original pick was KO/TKO round 3, I believe.
Interesting.
The more I think, because I did that, I said that pick a couple weeks ago, and I think that's what I put in. However, doing more research into that fight, I might have to go the taco route, where I am predicting a BSD I'm going to guess by 3rd round submission.
Also, I like to add that Dan Hooker took down Dustin Poirier twice, or maybe 3 times. So that should tell you enough.
That should tell you enough.
I think he'll survive.
Okay,
though,
go ahead. Getting into the main event, the fight that honestly I dislike, but and as I said at the beginning of this episode, Murab and Corey both beat whoever wins this. But getting into this fight, this is a rematch between Chito and Sean O'Malley. And getting into that fight, we see Sean O'Malley is the champion. I believe Sean O'Malley is favored in this over Chito. But getting into the technical aspect, they're both young, so I'm not too worried about anything. They're hitting I think close to the prime of their careers. But getting into the technical aspect, Chito is very much a slow starter. He very much likes to download stuff. Even slower than Petr Yan, in my opinion. But he has the chin to back it up. The only guy I know that could take 200 plus significant strikes and come out with no scratches on his face. But getting into the technical aspect, I think Chito's going to struggle a bit at the beginning. I think Sean's going to be winning the early rounds. I don't think Sean will be able to rock Chito necessarily. So when I look at this fight, I look at Sean and I look at his ability. I think he's going to be winning early on. However, I think Chito at the end of each round is probably going to get in a very clean and accurate punch like he's done in all of his other fights. And he's going to give him I think he's going to rock Sean O'Malley, and I think he's probably, I'm going to guess, KO/TKO round 4 for Chito Vera. I favor Chito in the cardio over O'Malley as well. We've never seen O'Malley go 5 rounds. We saw him go at a fast pace 4 rounds against Petr Yan. in a fight that I thought Petr Yan won. However, we don't need to get into it. But I think Chito is probably going to go in there. He's going to lose early, and he's going to win late. What do you guys think?
Okay. I think this is a very exciting fight, and I think there's two talking points I want to address. The first one is the first fight. It really doesn't matter if that kick was a fluke or not. Once it got to the ground, Chito sliced through Sean like butter. Literally, the first strike he threw, he knocked him out, basically. Like, he went completely limp, woke back up, and he got limp again, and it woke back up to Herb Dean on top of him. So I think if he gets to the ground, Chito has a really, really good chance of finishing Sean O'Malley. That being said, there's the other talking point I wanted to address was Corey Sandhagen fight. A lot of people are comparing Sean and Corey, and I don't think that's a fair comparison because Corey's just better. I'm a bit of a fanboy.
It's just a weird comparison as well.
They're both lanky and dynamic fighters, but they just don't really fight the same. Like, they don't strike the same. Yeah, and Corey used quite a bit of grappling to mix things up. And Corey uses a lot more feints. He's a lot smarter, I think, than Sean O'Malley. Like, Sean O'Malley is a very good striker, but I think Corey's just have a step ahead of him, and I think that's why he was able to shut down Chito's processing system, so I don't think the same thing will happen this fight. Now, when we look at the first fight, the only round, Sean O'Malley was landing a lot of leg kicks and body kicks. I think that will stay true, but Chito's very durable, and Chito's very patient, and I think he is smart and very precise with his shots. And I think the keys to victory for Chito are things that he already does very well. First of all, pressure, or like passive pressure is what I like to call it, where he just walks forward and he just is a threat. He throws a bit of things to like push Sean back, and when he is in an advantageous position, when Sean's back is against the cage, then he throws. And he has done this. I mean, that's how he knocked out Cruz. He has many knockouts like that. Frankie Edgar as well. He has quite a few. And specifically, Sean O'Malley was in those positions before, and his defense in those positions is not great. And Petr Yan put him in a bit of trouble in those positions. And since his hands are always low as well, he relies on head movement too much. I'm just banking on Chito being able to read that and use his accurate striking, and he has also the power that everything he throws hurts. Left hook. I mean, he has the most knockdowns in the division history. Left hooks, high kicks, knees, elbows. Oh my God, his clinch game is great. So I think the first 2 rounds, Sean is gonna win just by throwing leg kicks and body kicks, but especially if Chito starts throwing body kicks, which he didn't do in his last couple fights, he will be able to gas out Sean O'Malley, and by the 3rd or 4th round, Sean O'Malley is going to drag his feet along the fence, and that's when a left hook is going to knock out Sean O'Malley. So Chito by knockout round 4 is my pick.
Interesting. I don't disagree with a lot of things that you guys said, especially about on the technicalities of Chito and Sean. But I think for me, I'm kind of stepping back at this and I'm trying to just get a bit more context. So for me, Marlon's unfortunately being gifted this title shot just because of Sean.
True.
Sean's very much picked out not only because it's a loss he wants to get back, but Vera has not earned this fight through experience with the elite fighters in this division. And if the Corey fight showed anything, Marlon struggles to evolve his game, and his footwork is easily manipulated. And if I stand back here, I'm looking at Sean under the tutelage of a very, very smart coach of Tim Welch. I think they're going to plan a very, very defensive game here, and I'm not feeling this fight's going to have a lot of offense, actually. There's going to be a very sporadic offense between both of them, and I'm just not seeing a finish here. And Sean could take a more aggressive approach, approach for sure, but I'm expecting his mentality is with this one is going to keep it safe. He wants that win after the loss, and he's already talking about future aspirations with Ilya to Poirier, annoyingly enough. And like, I do also think the weak leg of his is like a narrative now that I don't think is as relevant, especially surviving that Munoz fight. Even if it was short, he was checking every leg kick, and Munoz is arguably one of the best leg kickers in the division, or up there at least, that's for certain. So I'm feeling we're not going to have an actually fun fight. I'm feeling this is going to be a long decision. I think there is a chance for sure Vera could catch him, and maybe drop him by any chance, but I don't see it actually getting stopped. Seeing at the full distance of it, we're going to have a fight that maybe turns out like that first round there. A lot of leg kicks from Sean, very high defensive game from him, and he's just going to get the decision, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I think you bring up very good points that I also agree with, especially with Sean's improved leg kick defense. I think that'll be good, and I haven't seen Chito do the same. He has struggled with leg kicks pretty often, and he hasn't really. I mean, he does check some of them, but I think Sean has improved more on that side. But the thing I want to say is that Sean is very open for body kicks, and I think he won't be able to take too many from Chito. But I do think, and I also agree that it will probably be a bit boring just because of Sean's avoidance of the action. He wants to win. He's gonna make it a bit boring, point fighting. But I still think Chito's gonna find a knockout.
I mean, I totally want Chito to find that knockout. I'm a massive Chito fan in that sense, so hopefully. I definitely agree, and I do think you guys have made good points, especially about like body kicks, and that like, you know, you cannot under any circumstance like just check out of the fight against Vera. And especially you guys brought up the gas thing. I think that's a really good point there. But I'm feeling like the finish is not going to come here, and if there's no finish and there's no stoppage, Sean's going to get it at the end of the day, in my opinion. Yeah.
Well, we already know that from the Peter Yan fight. If it goes to a decision, we know who's getting it. You know, right. I think I got to change my pick, though. I think what's going to happen is there's going to be a tiny scratch on Sean's toe, and Mark Goddard is going to come in and stop the fight. Just like what happened. People who don't get that reference don't know what PFL is. But getting into that,
lucky them.
Getting into that, I was thinking about what you were saying, Taco, and the best thing I can remember it to is, I don't know if you guys have watched this fight, but it's the first Wonder Boy, or the second Wonder Boy versus Woodley fight, where both of them were kind of waiting for the other person to do something, and I think if, as you said, if Sean doesn't throw first, I think we're going to get a very similar fight to that. And I'm going to be a bit worried about that. And as you said, if it gets to a decision, I think Sean's going to get it, because they're going to give it to Sean no matter what. 100%. Just like they're going to give it to Patty versus Jeff Gordon versus Gordon. But
no, I don't think, I'm not too worried about it being that level of boring, just because they both like to kick a lot. So at least we would get, I don't think it'd be a staring match per se, but I can definitely see it happen. But that actually plays a bit into Chito's favor, because Sean likes it when fighters walk into his range, and out of his feints he actually throws, so like to provoke an attack. And Chito is very responsible regarding that, and he only attacks when he knows there's an opening. But until that, he's very good at he throws a lot of front kicks even when he shouldn't. And I think the distance, because especially when he misses the front kicks, I think Sean or Chito will be able to close the distance right after and actually land on each other. So I don't expect it to be that boring.
Well, I just hope that Vera wins, at least. You know, I picked Sean, but Vera is definitely the guy who deserves the title. Like, it would be very wholesome. I think everyone likes Vera. I think don't really like Sean at all. I don't think anyone likes Sean, it seems.
Yeah.
He's one of the most cringy champions we have.
Correct.
Yes.
It's him on the mic is I think a dead squirrel could probably be better on a mic than him, but with that, be sure to like and subscribe. And we'll catch you in the next one.
For sure. See you,
Oh
fellas.
yeah. Thank you for watching if you made it all the way through. And stay tuned for more.
Stay tuned for more.
Bye.